Finish?
You were
Happy?
dancing
You were
in the
dancing
you were
in the
dancing
you were
in the
dancing in the
background.
background.
I was hoping to make my guests happy, but one
Your
guest never
guest can't.
Your
smiled
guest
also.
can't.
One guest is happy, the other guest didn't smile, very serious.
Very serious.
Very
Okay,
serious.
hi, good evening, Shamini Sudhan. This is Malar from Malaysia. How are you?
I am
I
fine,
am
Miss
fine,
Muller,
Miss Muller,
and
and
I am
I
from
am from
Singapore via
Singapore
KL.
via KL.
Okay, you're still in Malaysia. Selamat
Yes,
datang.
I am.
Yes, I am.
Right.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Okay,
Okay.
we have a
We have
guest
a guest
from Jakarta, Indonesia
Jakarta,
today.
Indonesia today.
Yes. A wonderful
And
guest
yes, with a very
Yes,
good
with a very
sense of
good
humor.
sense of humor.
with an amazing background.
That's with the background, literally, figuratively. When you're talking about
when you're talking about
the literal
the literal
background,
background,
I was just asking
I was
her,
just asking her,
you've
you've
been
been in
in FMCG all
FMCG
your
all
career,
your career,
and she said, yeah,
and she said, yeah,
all right,
Alright.
yeah, and
And
she also
she
said
also said
that she's been in
that
one
she's
form
been in
of
one form
talent
of talent
development
development or
OD in
OD
in some form or
in
fashion or
some
the
form
other,
of fashion
right?
or the other, right?
So we're going to have
So
a
we're going
nice
to have a nice
chat, I'm sure,
chat,
a brilliant chat
a brilliant chat
with Badai
with Badai about
why the
why the
outcome
outcome
is perhaps
is
more
perhaps
important
more
than the
important
process
than the process
in talent
in
retention.
talent retention.
Right.
Mm.
So let's bring her in and squeeze the brain. Kejap.
Squeeze it.
Okay. Squeeze it out. Squeeze all the clever juices out. Okay,
Yes.
let me give her the right order. Man,
Oi.
Wait.
Okay, done. Hey, Patricia is already saying hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yes, back
That's in the audience.
that's in the audience.
Hi, Badai.
Hi, Badai.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. That's echo on my side.
My side.
Okay. I'll do something about
I'll
it.
do something about it.
Okay.
All right. Over to you, Malar.
Over to you, Malar.
Hi, Badai. How are you?
Hi, Malar.
Hi, Malar.
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, wow, so serious. I love your background.
I know. We discussed this, right?
I know. So welcome to our show. Thank you for saying yes, right? And our theme for the month of now in September is actually retention, right? Talent retention. I want to say employee retention, talent retention. And one of those things that I thought was fascinating when we were trying to figure out what should be the scope of today's session. You said, we were talking about employee retention, and you said employee retention is an outcome, right? Because I don't know what I saw it as, when we decided it's talent retention, right? But you were so clear about it. So can you help us understand what do you mean by employee retention as an outcome? Because I think that a lot of times we probably, or maybe I, assume that it was a process.
Malar, before I answer, can I check whether there's an echo from my voice?
I can hear you. Keep talking.
Okay, so it's okay, right?
We are good.
Okay. So when I mentioned about the talent retention as outcome, because it's actually the ultimate mission for the company, right? To ensure that the talent is actually stay with that company. To grow, to deliver, and then I think that's actually the intention for the company. So that's why everything that we do actually will help us to get the retention of the talent.
Right.
So that's why I say that this is an outcome, not the process.
Nice. Sham, what do you think about what Badai is saying right now? We're trying to check your...
You're trying to check my mark.
Yeah. Whether you're listening or not. Oh, I'm echoing now. Okay. So it's your echo, is it, Sham? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to mute you for a while until you figure that out. All right. Thanks. I hope so let's try this again. Hello. Hi, Patricia. But I'm sure you ring. Oh, thank you. There's echo from your side. Patricia, can you help me? Calling in while driving. Patricia, please be safe. Patricia E is saying hello to you, Badai. Do let us know whose echo it is. I think it's mine. Okay. I'm going to see what I can do while I do that. So you said, sorry, yeah, I'm a little bit disoriented. I'm good now. Employee retention is an outcome, and you explained that to us. Now, in the space that you're actually working, right, Badai, what are the post-pandemic changes that you are seeing that makes employee retention more challenging? So I think we are hopefully safely in the post-pandemic space, right? And if you think about it, what are the changes that you are seeing? That is really, it's a difficult space for leaders. We were having a conversation. Oh, Shamini has changed form. Sorry, but I have to do this.
No
For
worries.
those who've joined us, thank you very much. I'm still Malar from Hearts and Minds, and you see that we got Sham kicked out, and Ashok Menon has joined us. Hi, Ashok.
Hi. I think. Oh, I'm also hearing an echo on my side now.
So I think it is the system today. It's the StreamYard system. So never mind. We will figure this out. So I don't think it's any one of us. I think it is the system, because all of us are having echo. Let's see what we can do best. But I'm going to ask you to just answer the question first while I try and figure this out. Yeah. Okay. So what are some post-pandemic changes that you've seen that makes employee retention a bit more challenging? We know leadership is challenging because we've come to a space almost unknown, right? Because we can't assume people are feeling the same way. We know people are feeling different. There's enough data to say people are feeling different, right? And so with this, already employee retention pre-pandemic was tough, right? Now, how has that shifted? To you, Badai.
Okay. So hopefully there's no echo from my side. I think clear. Okay, good. Happy to hear that. So I think post-pandemic, for the all employees, I think including myself as an employee as well. So we get to think deeply about what is our priority in life, right? So that we think what is actually really matters. I think in the past, most of the people thinking about only career development, the money that they will get from the company. But nowadays, they also think about whether my job is actually giving me enough time to actually taking care of what is important for me. It's not only for those who have kids, but also those who have like I think can be a spouse, or can be even some people is actually adopting animal during the pandemic time, right? And it's actually something that matter for them, or plants. Then people start think that in the past well-being is luxury things. I think I have an echo.
No,
Can
no,
you hear me
you're
now?
fine. You're fine.
Okay, good. So in the past, well-being is actually a luxurious thing, but after the pandemic, well-being is actually the basic foundation for a performance. So unless the organization think about well-being of the employees, that's actually become one of the key consideration for people to actually joining or leaving company. So I think that's the challenging part for the company, that that you are not only think about how to actually retain your talent, but also to keep updated so that your organization can meet the needs for the talent after the pandemic, because then people have option, right? People have more option. Of course, in the past we are only competing with the same FMCG, for example, but nowadays we are also competing with non-FMCG, with startup, even with those that are keen to, I want to explore my own business. So then because of the option, then it becomes more complex for us in terms of the game of retention.
Mm. So if you take what you just said and match it with the answer to the first question that you had, which is the outcome is more important than the process, right? I can see where you're going with that, right? What has been at the strategic level, at the organizational level, the challenge that you have faced, or how are you thinking about it? About how are you thinking about retention in given this scenario? That's one. And number two, as a leader, what are you doing differently?
Okay. So I think as an organization perspective, one of the things that we need to address, I think this is also happening during the pandemic, right? In the before pandemic, we expect leaders only deliver the outcome, but during pandemic, we actually ask leader, how are your teams? Are they okay during this pandemic? Is there any help that we need to help to do, right? So the job of a leader is actually by itself is actually expanding into not only care about the outcome of the job, but also ensure that the well-being of their team. Because otherwise, if their team is actually got COVID in the past, I think it's actually stressful for everyone. He's not only need to manage the organization, especially during Delta. I think that was the most stressful time for all the leaders as well as HR, right? Because those are the times when we need to take care of our employees while we also need to manage our own family. And it's a new situation for everyone, right? We need to transform people from working in the office into the online
Yep.
world. We need to change everything, right? That was the big task that happened in the past. But I think at the same time, the bottom line then, uh, the transition toward the post pandemic is that how a leader then can become the face of the organization in terms of ensuring those needs I think I'm using this like artificial intelligence. When because I love Korean drama, then my Netflix feeds would different compared to those who love horror movie, for example. Yeah, it's customized by the AI. But I don't think most organization actually having those AI for the employees, right? So who would be the AI for that is actually our team leader who can customize what kind of things that actually retain people, what kind of things that actually motivate them, what kind of things that actually demotivate them. Because it can be totally different. You cannot expect that even I think there's a we know there's a different generation like millennials, Gen Z. I think they talk about how different each generation. But even within those generation, you can see a difference. And the one who can see that is actually the team leaders. So I think that's actually the bigger role that expanding for the team leader in terms of the retention game is actually how he can customize all the experience to ensure that it's actually retaining, motivating, but at the same time, as organization, it is fair as well for everybody.
Oh my God, the amount of things as a leader you have to do nowadays. Okay, you have to look at the outcomes, you look at the results, you have to look at well-being, and you need to customize by the individual, right? You need to look at and you're looking at the individual as an individual, not as a millennial or a Gen Xer or a baby boomer. You're looking at this person as a being. What motivates this person? How do I keep this person engaged? How do I keep the person well so that the person can contribute to the outcomes, right? So what are you seeing, Badai, as the skills a leader needs to have to be this AI?
Uh, the good things, Charm, is actually classic skills. asking question, listening to them, but listening generously, because sometimes the trap for the leader, especially for successful leaders, because you feel that you are successful, you use yourself as a role model. So it is easy to trap on the mode of mentoring. Like for example, I'm a mom of three. Then I saw my team, for example, struggle with her kids. So very easy for me to become, oh, you know what I will do is actually this and this and this. But then that's not working, because the reality that I have been is actually different to reality, as well as the perception of this person. So I think just hold your thought before being a mentor. I think ask question, clarify, before you actually using the mentoring hat or coach hat or leader hat. I think that's what I'm saying. So especially for those of you who actually have the similarity of experience, because when it's actually different, you actually more curious, right? You really want to know. But when you actually been there, done that, you feels like I'm the expert, and then it's very easy for you to actually become. You need the wise man, wise woman who just giving advice, which is this generation, this new generation. I think more for them is actually what they need, actually being listened to instead of being told what to do, because I think the new generation are smarter than us, right? In terms of the all the information is available. I think I cannot imagine. By the way, I still a part of those generation who come to the library to actually find a books, right? Nowadays, you don't have to come to the libraries. Everything is actually online.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
Malar, you want to go in? Yeah.
While you speak, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Thanks, Badai. I think now mine also has a topic.
No, fine.
No? Okay,
No,
now
you're
I'm
fine.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I lost my track because of the question. I think next, Ashok, we need to get you in to see whether the echo is working. So it's
Okay,
the
let me see
question.
if it's working.
It's echo.
I do hear echo on your side. I do hear myself also.
So I think it's the same. It's the system,
Sure.
except when you were speaking. All right. We're going to try and get this going, right? So I know you said some of the things that you said was almost basic stuff that we've been doing, but I think we need to do it as leaders, probably at a deeper level, right? Because right now, while we say we need to build relationships, we need to listen deeply to what is the need of the employee. Right now, with the new way of working where people are scattered, they're either working from home or it's a hybrid, our chances of knowing our employees might be low, right? Communication is limited. How do we do that? And again, what specific skills do you think would help leaders so that we can engage them and hopefully retain them?
Mala, I think the first thing is actually being intentional about it. Because sometimes we were very busy in terms of all the list that we had. So I think make it priority for us to really have a connection with our team. Uh, I think I just had a meeting with my team. One of the requests from this team is actually let's have a lunch where we don't have to speak about work. So when everyone is actually talking about work, then there's a fine. So that I think because the team wanted to have like more connection. So I think be intentional about what you want to do. That's first. The second, also make time, because for example, in my experience, I am actually aiming to have like one-on-one every month. Uh, in order for me to do one-on-one every month, I actually schedule one-on-one every week. So at least if we miss those, we actually will get at least 1 month of connection, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes it's just like, oh, it's only half hour. I just want to know how are you, any things that you want to discuss, any help that you need from me. Those kind of things actually build conversation, right? But we need to be intentional, and I think in a way also speak what is our intention toward the person.
Mm.
Sounds
Yeah.
too simple,
So
right?
no, usually the simplest things are not the easiest things to do, because what you're saying is that to be present, right? To be totally present for the individual. And when you actually say, put aside time to be present for people, it's making people a real priority.
Yep.
Because we did take people for granted, right? So, and presence is not anything new, but if under normal circumstances present was difficult, now present is, it has to be even more intentional,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So why it looks easy, I think it is a very important skill, and to make it a priority is the part I think we need to actually get going. Okay, Sham, yeah, you want to take on the next question?
Sharp, you're on mute.
Simon. Okay, let's see if there's an echo. There is slight echo. I want to go back to outcome, not process, right? Um, so if talk about a process, can I think it's important for people to know what we mean by process, right? So if you were to say where you would say, the process is not as important as the outcome, or where the process is more important than the outcome. Can you give us a, like, an opposite example?
Okay, sure. So, in terms of retention, there are some team leaders that come to HR and say, "Hey, I think we need to retain my team." How? Because the person actually already submitted resignation. Then that's what they mean by retention. And when
Mm.
the person already submit a resignation, it means the only retention that we can do is actually match the offer that being given to the person.
Mm.
And it's not sustainable for the organization, right? It's not. And then sometimes I think I know a lot of practices where people can read that, oh, if I want to get a promotion, if I want to get salary adjustment, what I can do is actually I just do the interview, go to the market, and then after that I get an offer. Then I told my organization that, hey, I want to resign, so unless you actually give me a retention. So that's not the retention. For me, that's not an ideal retention, because it put pressure into the organization, and it's not healthy, because most of your employees will actually think about how can I get an offer in order for me to get a promotion. So I think then, as organization, when you say that retention is an outcome, you think about the whole talent strategy. If I want to promote this person, I already have a plan for this person,
Mm.
right? So it's not because this person want to resign, then I promote them.
Mm.
But you already have a plan in your organization that who you will promote within those year, and when will you promote this person. Even if then it's accelerated, it has to be already planned, right? It's not just, oh, because of like you start to care about the people when people submitting resignation. I think that's a very bad message for the whole organization, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by retention is not process, it's actually an outcome. So even if you actually match the offer, there's no guarantee that this person will not leave your organization.
Yeah. If not now, at some point,
Yeah.
very soon. Yeah. We have. I'm just looking at our comments. We have Sharma Kumari. who was our guest about a few 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, when we're talking about talent acquisition. Just got a question. She said, salary, culture, etc. Which are the biggest factors or drivers in talent retention at Rec?
Hmm. That's an interesting question, Sharma. I don't know whether I can be a good representative for Racket because this is my 5th month with Racket actually. But if I can, based on my stay interview with some of people that actually stay in Racket. So one of the things I don't think is actually about salary, because of course salary is actually a hygiene factor. In order for you to retain talent, of course you need to ensure that you are actually paid by the market. So ensure that you are actually in market price. You are competitive. If your salary is not competitive, then it's really difficult to actually retain your talent. But then if I ask people who stay very long with the company, most of them love about is actually more of the culture, where I think there's a term in Racket, freedom to succeed. So they feel like they have like the empowerment to actually do whatever they're actually passionate about, as long as it's actually help the company to get the uh, the outcome that needed for the company. So I think that's at least that's what from what I hear within my 5 months with Racket.
Nice.
Hmm.
Nice. Now that brings me to the question of how how do we build or strengthen our culture now that people are spread out in different ways of working, which seems to be the most important consideration now for employees.
So I think I'll give you an example. So for the past 2 years during the pandemic, Racket is actually asking the people to stay at home, at least for the commercial office in the head office. So it means that in within 2 years time, people actually doing everything virtually. What we actually found out is actually the missing part is the connection and communication. Because when you work virtually, whether you are aware or not, most of the time you will spend with people who are in the line of work. You don't speak with people from other department that is not correlated directly with your work. So sometimes you only knows the people within your department. So then when the government already opened the that we can coming back to the office, the discussion that we had is actually along the session whether we want to bring them 5 days a week or actually we give them flexibility. Now, because our problem is actually connection, we actually discuss with a lot of people and then discuss among leadership team that okay, let's bring back at least 3 days, but all the people is actually coming back to the office, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Why? Uh, you know, uh, Monday and Friday usually the worst traffic jam in Jakarta. The more I think the traffic is very bad, so that I think for us bringing them in the middle of the week is the best way so that everyone can come comfortably, but then at the same time they actually will be uh, having more flexibility in Monday and then Friday for working alone or doing their project. And then also we set up like a half day every 2 weeks is actually no meeting day. So we encourage people not to do a meeting on Friday so that they can have more time to learn, to actually focus on themselves, to do the tasks that needed, to ensure that they are more effective and happier at work.
Nice.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in now and just ask a question for Dai. Right. I know you mentioned earlier that we need to be intentional in the way we engage our staff. I like that. I think that's very good, very important. And you also then jumped into culture, which is extremely important, right? Swinging back to what Sharma had asked. Now, my view is this: every organization, every team has a culture. Now, either it has come by design or by default. And I suspect from my experience, what I've noticed is it's by default. So in this area where we are coming out of this pandemic and we have a lot of shift in the way people are working and having expectation, should this culture of engagement be intentional and driven from the top? And if so, how can they then influence the interactive bit?
I think that's why Asok, I mentioned about being intentional because unless we are being intentional, we cannot change the culture that we want.
Nice.
For example, I think I must admit that focusing on well-being was not the strength of Reckitt in the past. It's always known as very aggressive organization, very result oriented, then at the sometimes not really people organization. So I think when we discuss about well-being, the communication that we had globally, I think this is actually transformation that we did globally to change this culture. It's actually communication that well-being is not an additional. Well-being is actually a fundamental ways of getting performance. So that's the communication that we give to the leaders, so that when it's actually part of the responsibility of the leaders to actually not only delivering the performance but also in terms of well-being. So we actually have a lot of survey asking how the people is actually asking about how we behave as a leader to ensure that we are in alignment with the expectation of the organization. So that's what I mean by being intentional.
Nice. I like the fact that well-being has become a priority and it is intentional from top down. And you're doing a 360 to ensure that everybody is actually showing up and making that impact along the way, right? Oh, that's really, really fantastic. And in terms of what the leaders are doing, how's that journey for them? Because now they're switching from, because you say well-being is important today. So I'm making an assumption that much focus was not done in the past. So some of the leaders are also need hand-holding. So how are these supported in this area?
So I think a lot of it is actually part of the job of HR as well, to become the culture guardian. So a lot of time we actually having an engagement and then getting feedback about, oh, I think my leaders need to do this. I think my leaders need to respect the no meeting day. So that we have to communicate to the leaders to help them how we can prioritize to ensure that we are not using the no Friday meetings to do a meeting. You know that there's always a leader who say that, oh, you know what? I don't do meeting. I just do a connection with my team, which is we know that that's not right. So I think that's actually the things that we discuss, and at some point, of course, the GM or the president director will actually set the tone. So I think that's the discussion that we had. Yeah, but I think not easy. Not easy for those who already come from the culture where I think well-being is not my problem, right? Yeah, so of course there are difficult journey. Sometimes we need to come in the middle. For example, we need to discuss with the team. Hi, sometimes you need to come on Saturday, but I think then we discuss about how you actually can actually replace this in other day when we are not actually busy. So I think those kind of things need to be discussed. For example, another things that the leaders actually doing in finance, you know, that during the closing period, they will have to work extra hours, right? So on those days, for example, they don't need to come to the office. They can just work for home because it is for in Jakarta. It's already another extra 2 hours commuting. So those of the things that we can do in discretion to ensure that we can find the balance.
Mm. It's interesting how either it's from top down or from individual level, you've figured out, we need to do something different. we can't we can't go outcome, like you said. We used to be very outcome. Reckitt was known to have a certain kind of way of working. It's now shifted to look at, now we need to have that well-being element into it, right? um and I dare say, and this is my opinion, that if you are a leader who's focused on outcome and performance, even if, like you said, right before, well-being is like it's your problem, lah. You figure it out. And even if you still think that way, I think you need to do the right things, and or the correct things, or make the correct noises in order for you to get the performance that you want from your people, right? Regardless of what your opinion is about well-being, and individuals' well-being, who needs to take care of it, or who needs to oversee it. Yeah. um, my question, I'm going to shift the direction of the conversation a little bit, right? Because on social media now, everything is about, there's all these things about, first it was the great resignation, sekarang it's about the quiet quitters, right?
Mm.
And macam the quiet quitters is a new trend. The quiet quitters has been around for a long time. My husband is a quiet quitter. He's been a quiet quitter for about 20 years now, all right. But I did a post and I said, it doesn't mean that quiet quitters are not performing. They're performing though on their own, perhaps on their own decisions, right? On um, their own level of what they're doing it. But they are performing, because if they're not performing, the organization will just boing, you're out of it, right? And I'm sure you've seen the concept of quiet quitters. You've seen examples of it in the organizations that you have. But right now, people are looking at it and saying, oh, they have very strong opinions about quiet quitting, or, they call it slacking, they call it whatever it is. So how do you think about quiet quitters? I think we can agree that it is something that happens, right? So we can agree about that. How do you think about it from a human resource perspective?
So I think I want to ensure that we are actually in the common discussion, right? Because
Mm.
when I heard about quiet quitters, it is actually people who say that I want to be disconnected from my work after 5 p.m. But it doesn't mean that I'm slacking off during my work. I'm still
Mm.
doing my work within
Mm.
9 to 5, for example, or
Mm.
whatever
Whatever boundary.
the agreement
Yeah. Yeah.
aspect. That's actually the definition, right? It is not
Yes.
people that actually during the work they actually taking extra lunch hour, but
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
ensure that they will
No.
they
No.
come
No.
late, and then no, right? This is
No.
actually people
No.
that say
Yep.
that. I think this is about setting boundaries, right? Which is, I
Yep.
think, it's a more trend, and it is part of the when we discuss about well-being. It is how
Mm.
people actually setting boundaries about the job, because
Mm.
at, let me put this way. I think a lot of people will disagree, of course. In the past, we always say about outperforming. We always say about going above and beyond.
Mm.
Even in many companies, the
Mm.
way they put a performance rating is that if you are doing above and beyond your role, you will get a better rating compared to those who actually deliver as expectation,
Mm.
which is 95, right? So I think then the discussion would be because before discussing this, I want to give a big perspective about the work. Work is
Mm.
actually a very important part of adult life, right? And then between company and employees, we actually bond by an agreement. So
Mm.
whatever is within agreement, it is a legal term, right? What is valid is actually within the agreement. So
Mm.
I think, currently people feel bad about working. Why? Because many people put the term corporate slave. I don't know whether you are aware or not. It's very in for people
Mm.
that, oh, you are working for a company, then you are actually a corporate slave.
Mm. Mm.
When you say that you are a slave, it means that you are it's not a good term to
Yep.
be identified yourself as a slave, right?
Mm.
Because then the job is not meaningful. When the job is not meaningful, then it is a painful things to do within your working hour.
Mm. Mm.
So I think 9 to 5 perhaps work for some people.
Mm.
But
Mm.
for other people, for example, their need it's actually more work and life integration. For example, I get to pick my daughter to school and then coming back, then I continue my work after office hour, for example. But that's
Mm.
what I need. So I
Mm.
think the concept of quiet quitter, for me, the term quiet is actually the most dangerous
Mm.
because then the conversation doesn't happen between the leaders and the team. Because
Mm.
imagine if you are quiet quitter about some things, then suddenly you need to taking care of emergencies, and your
Yep.
leader doesn't know that you are not answering phone after 5 p.m. What will
Mm.
happen?
Mm.
Because I have a team. I have a person in my team that actually a morning person. So she said,
Mm.
Mbak Badai, if you invite me meeting after 5, I'm actually only half. Uh,
Wait.
and I
I
tried that it's true.
I
So
know.
that's
I know.
actually the, yeah. So that's the things that I know. So what happened is actually if I need a meeting with her, I will do it in the morning because that's where her energy is actually most built up. So I think if you need to set a boundaries, please communicate with your leaders because at the
Mm.
same times, I think there are still a lot of leaders that measure your performance based on whether you are staying late or not in the office, right?
Mm. Mm.
I'm still remember my first boss. She used to say like, "Badai, I can see that you have so much potential because you see that I stay late in the office, and you know why I stay late in the office? Because I'm a night person. So so the darker it gets, the more motivated I am. So the more I will be full of energy. Instead of partying, I'm using for work. So I think that's different, right? So I think that's
Mm.
why for me, the term quiet quitter is actually very dangerous if you just do it by yourself and not involving your team leaders or your organization, because organization can help you to set up a boundaries. Because
Mm.
of course we want also people to disconnect from work. Why? Because if you are not having the right disconnect from work, then most likely you will get burned out. And when you get burned out, your mental health will affecting. And when your mental health is affecting, then I think there's no way we discuss about performance, right? When you don't have the right mental health. So I
Yeah.
think that's why for me it's a logical things that let's bring the to the depths if you need those disconnection from work with your team
Mm.
leader.
Oh, that's brilliant. I like the way you refocus that concept of quiet quitting to just the element of quiet, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the scary part. No one knows, no one's engaging. It's a disengagement between the leader and that individual because either the individuals is not telling the leader or the leader is not asking, and there's no connection, there's no conversation that's happening. It's a brilliant reframe of how to think about that particular concept of quiet quitting, right? In a way it's feedback, but it's just the feedback is so quiet, it's so silent, you don't hear it,
Yeah.
right? The decibels are too low. Yeah. Just going to check in. Ashok, would you like to take the follow-up question?
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. Right. So
Good.
again, the comment is yes, I like the reframing of the quiet part. But if I even look at the whole term quiet quitting, I think, like what you say, Sean, right? I think it's been around even before COVID.
Yes.
I think they just come up with a frame now, because if you look at the engagement scores even before COVID, there are people who are not engaged, and I would think that these people were also quiet and quitters in that sense. All right, which also then brings to a skill set that you kept repeating, Badai. You said there needs to have a conversation, right? And again, earlier on, you said we have to be intentional in listening. So what I'm hearing from you is this is also another skill that leaders need to pick up on how to hold very intentional conversation. Now, is that even easy? Do people know how to? What's your experience in your corporate life, not slave life, but corporate life?
Right. So I think that's something that we need to learn. Ashok, from my experience, I'm actually a extreme extrovert. So you gave me the stage, you gave me,
No.
I can speak without a concept. But then when I become a team leader, I know that it's actually stop people from speaking, especially in Indonesia context. I think in most Asia, that will happen because then people will just echoing what you say, right? Because I think you are right, but let's do your decision. And then I know that I'm not the smartest person in the room. And even if I am, the best ideas can come from everyone, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then it is actually deciding if I will not learn anything. So that's where I actually stop talking, and then I ask my team to actually speak more. Give your ideas. What is it that you want? Even if I have even if I have a different opinion, I would say that let's challenge. Let's find a better ideas. So I think and the most big things, the switch is actually being intentional about shut up. Whenever I'm in a meeting, shut up and just listen, right?
Okay. Okay.
So that, yeah, because then it's not easy. The first time I'm always completing sentence from my team.
Sure.
Then I learned coaching. Then I learned about how to do listening.
Okay. Okay.
The proper listening, how to listen not only the things that being said, but also the whole expression, the body language. That's where you get into more deeply about how you understand
Sure.
your team.
Sure. Thanks a lot for that. I know Malad is going to come in soon. I'm holding her back. I'm only supposed to come in next week, but then I know. But hey, what the hell? My question is, okay, because Badai, you come from a HR space, so you get this whole thing about awareness, conversation, empathy, and all. But there are a lot of leaders and managers who are on a very operational level. What is their level of self-awareness of these leadership traits that they need today, which is going to be important for the future? How many of them are really self-aware about this is very important, or even at that level, at different organizations? So first question is, at the leadership level, how many of them are even self-aware that they need to build up on these competencies or skills?
I think if we expect that people are self-aware, it's going to be a long journey. So then it is part of where the organization need to be intentional
Got it.
about giving feedback. I think that's
Fantastic.
where the 360, for example, in Racket, we do the 360 and giving the feedback to each department. So they know not only the business outcome, because Ashok, empathy is actually very difficult word, right? But then when you put into a numbers, into scores, everyone can see if
Correct.
your department has the lowest engagement score.
Mm, mm,
Even if you are performing, you know that you need to do something about it, right?
okay. Okay.
So I think that's how we can use all the tools that we have in our organization
Got it.
to give feedback and bring the team leader toward awareness.
All
And then
right.
at the same time, I think
Nice.
not only to the employees, but the conversation to happen between the organization or HR with the team leaders. How we can
Fantastic.
help help them toward this journey. Because,
Right.
like you said, right, for us in HR, perhaps it's part of our life, right?
Yes.
But then for them, I think they will be saying, I don't have time. I don't have the
Mm.
resources. I have this expectation from the business. I'm working for your bonus. So I think those conversation need to happen, and I
Nice.
think one of the important thing is that uh, the team leader need to know that we are is actually in their side. We are not trying to make them look bad.
Sure.
I think the last thing that we want to do is actually saying, "Hey, your team leaders is actually really not working, right?" Because everyone is actually on the process of doing this, right?
Okay. Nice. So what I'm hearing is yes, self-awareness can be created, but through measurements. Fantastic. Muller, I shall keep quiet now.
The echo really put on a lot of stress for me. I must say, I couldn't think. I got hijacked because I didn't. The hearing was really affected. Okay, thank you, Ashok. You saved the day. If you want a lot of things, I wish this conversation can be a 2-hour conversation, but we don't have that much time. Before I summarize, right? See, I love the fact that you said corporate slave. I don't know. No, I love it. I love it because in this part of the world, I think that there has been some research. We know Singapore and Malaysia. We're not sure where Indonesia is right now, but in Singapore and Malaysia, it's almost a pride to be a corporate slave. Number one. Number two is so it's and we know that the longest hours are from this part of the world, right? Right? And so, you're talking about corporate slaving, which is true, which is why we are burnout and we have a lot of other issues coming through. And you've also took us through very nicely as to how we are rethinking priority. So the kind of things that employees are asking for today are things that they have had time to rethink and have the courage to speak up. The issues were already there, right? But one of those things that like is sort of bothering me is that I don't know about in your part of the world. Sham, tell me how is it in Singapore, right? But generally, every job description comes with the last one, then line. Can
Expect work long hours.
ah, you know, and then line. And so I think a couple of things is coming through for me. I think what we seem to be moving towards is a fairer world. If you want a fair world, then we need clarity among leaders, right? Because in the past, because I employed corporate slaves, I know which button to get them to be anxious or threatened or not feel safe. So when I pushed that button of bonus, KPI, and all of that, people were running at the right. They were running and say, okay, I need to do whatever I need to do to keep my job every year, keep my job for my promotion. I need to be in the good books of my boss. Here we say, kena jaga hati, right? Ampu dan sebagainya, right? So that's what in this part of the world we say. Plus, you cannot go to your boss and say, this is not part of my job, because there's always the last one, which is done line. All right. And so when it comes to quiet quitting in the definition, that means now what I'm doing is that what we are reframing, the employees are trying to reframe with quiet quitting is that, hello, this is my contract. As long as I keep my contract, give me what is due to me. Right. But we do have the last bit, which is done line, which is always going to be a challenge, right? How do we address this? Do you think organizations and HR will be ready to take away the done line?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a good point, Malar. Um, even when you have the best job description, with the current uh, challenge in terms of the way our world is actually working, we will never have 100% perfect job description to craft that, oh, this is my job and this is your job, right? There always an intersection, there always interaction, right? That's one thing. So I think the line is unavoidable. Now the discussion is actually talking about resources, right? If and sometimes we are forget about what is it that we are trying to achieve, because the moment you stuck with job description, sometimes you forget that perhaps your description were built 10 years ago, and it's not relevant toward the expectation of today. So I think at the same times, that's why I'm talking a lot about discussion, right? Because then if you have like your team only 100% of the energy, you cannot expect that people is actually delivering 100% of job description, plus suddenly you have 100 more targets, new targets, and then expect that with the same resources you can deliver that. It's not possible, right? You don't have the magic pen. You are just a leader, you are not a magician. So what you can do is actually to ensure that you have priorities. What is it that you are trying to achieve as organization, and what is it that you are trying to achieve as a team? And then sometimes you have to make a difficult decision, saying that, oh, then we need to review our these priorities. This is not our priorities. We cannot have 10 priorities
Mm, mm.
or 20 priorities. Right? If we are saying about priorities, then make it five. What is the big bets that you really wanted to deliver well, and what is for you? Okay, this is we can deliver in basic, to ensure that your team doesn't go into burnout. And then the second, Sharm, I don't know whether I told you that I leave my previous organization because I want to pursue my master degree, right? So I completed my thesis, and it's actually about the impact of job demand to work engagement.
Mm,
And I think there's an interesting fact. So job demands, like Malar said, right, usually impactful negatively toward work engagement. So the highest job demand that you give to the employees, the work engagement will actually decreasing.
mm,
Now, interestingly, inside job demand, there is two components. One job demand is actually giving the team challenge.
mm,
It's like cognitive demand. They need to come up with a project deadline. I think
mm,
Malar saying something about push factor. You need to get this,
mm,
otherwise you will not get your bonus, for example.
mm,
The time pressure is actually part of the challenge. But there are also job demands that actually create, it's called restraint, like organization politics, role
mm,
that is not clear,
mm,
different priorities.
mm,
It's actually job demand that actually categorized as challenge, actually increasing the work engagement. So the more
mm,
you challenge your employees, the more engaged they are with their work,
mm,
right? I think there are times when we forgot time, right? Oh, if you are doing a project that's really interesting, you actually get more energized, right? You don't feel tired, right? But when you have to meet difficult customer, when you have to manage office politics, it actually drains your energy and reduce your work engagement.
mm,
So that's where, as a leader, we need to be intentional about what is it the demands that we are giving to the employees. And it is our role as a leader to help them remove the job that is actually part of the constraint.
mm.
And by the way, the supportive supervision is actually increasing work engagement. So that's actually based on the research.
So nicely done.
Oh, I
I
love
love the
Badai.
yeah, I love Badai. I love Badai as well.
I love Badai's environment. I love Badai. Thank you. I
Oh
think
no,
what you've
and I
done
love wait. I love Badai because she talked about flow when you're so into the. She
exactly,
defined
and
flow.
she also said, so what she said very clearly is the idea of engagement. What we so pre-pandemic, even though people were disengaged, we didn't pay too much of attention because we were very task driven without checking in whether to see it's relevant or not, first and foremost, right? We didn't check in to see what people are doing, why people are disengaged, right? We didn't look at the conversation that we needed to have to find out what will
Mm,
engage them, because when we have that conversation, it helps us to come back to our role as managers to rethink about it, right? What's not relevant, because, and that's the feedback you're talking about. Firstly, feedback from employees from the beginning, deep listening, intentional listening, and being present to what the employee is trying to say. Because I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning to come to work not to be present or not to do their best. I don't think any, but by the way, it happens. And that happening is what you said, what gets measured gets done, right? So if we measure the right thing, and in this case, if we measure the engagement, right, we would be able to see if people are disengaged, then we now turn it around and say, okay, let's find out why they're disengaged, and let's see how to bring that in. And towards the end, you actually talk about challenges, because people love stretches. It is the stretch that makes people continue to stay in the flow state. Because a lot of times we're thinking, now the way you're talking about 9 to 5 work and all, it seems like we're almost saying, people are becoming AI, very robotic. But that's not what people want. People want to use their 8 hours of work that they are giving to be used well, so that they feel useful, they feel purposeful, they have meaning in their work. And for us to do all of this as leaders, we need to listen, because they also have the answers. Our employees also have the answers, and we can bring it together, right? I also love the idea of supportive supervisor that you actually mentioned, because our role now is not so much of leading, but being that support person that we are supposed to be, right? And for that, we might need new skills, because we used to think we were the smart one. You already say we're not smart. Okay, I have to get over it, right? So, the smart people are the younger people. So why don't you throw that challenge and get it from them and be the support supervisor for them? And what I'm hearing also, and what I absolutely loved, is that I think if we implemented all the things that you're telling us, I'm not sure now what's going to happen to extrovert managers. I'm worried for them, because now we have to listen deeper. It seems to me that there are a lot of things to unlearn and relearn for leaders first, for us to actually get into whatever we call the new normal, right? Whether it's for talent acquisition or retention or development or the whole cycle. Because without all of this, it's difficult to achieve organizational objective, right? And what was absolutely brilliantly going into, I suppose, in the month of October, is the fact that you put health, mental health, as the center or the fundamental of everything. Because the reason the problem is here is because of us not doing all of the things that we were supposed to do right in the past. This is the outcome of not doing the right thing for our people in the past. Now let's make it right, get the right outcome, is what you say. Now I got so excited. I feel like we've started, but we must end, because Shami is going to kill me otherwise. It is 7:06. So, but I thank you very much for joining us and enlightening us, taking us through really what seems to be basic, fundamental, but things that we didn't do. And I think it takes a lot of courage for an organization and for a leader to say, hey, we may not have done right by you, but we're going to make it right for you now. And make the world the way it is supposed to be, that, it's supposed to be fair for everybody. It's not, workplace is not supposed to be a place of slavery, the way we've run in modern ways. So thank you so much for joining us and enlightening us. Sham, Ashok, you want to kiss and say goodbye to them?
No, I want to ask Badai if she has what would she like to leave us with for this week? What's your final pearl of wisdom or diamond of wisdom, or whichever
Diamond.
gem? Yeah, diamond, diamond. Okay.
Badai means diamond.
So I think for us a leader, I think Malar, just to say that I think extrovert need to learn, but extrovert also have a strength because they can communicate better. For introvert, you are genuine listener, but sometimes you don't communicate openly about how you respect your talent. So I think at the same time, each of us always need to develop ourselves to ensure that we are relevant in this world, and then to ensure that we are because the things that we learned in the past may not relevant in the current situation, right? So I think that's what I said. So I think not to worry. It's just that if we can learn TikTok, right? It's
We can learn
then we can
anything.
learn anything.
Lovely.
Nicely done, Badai. Thank you for joining us this week. Thank you for giving us your gems of wisdom and being so open to share with you. I love your candidness and your honesty. And thank you for being
Thank you,
here.
Badai.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Bye, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Bye. So
Bye.
let's say bye to Badai, and it's the three of us. And let's very quickly tell people why we have this man as the center right now.
Yeah. And this it was baptism of fire today with
Yeah, totally.
Totally baptism of fire. I should ask the question because he's the one without the echo. So everyone, as you can see, we have Ashok, and Ashok's done a brilliant job of standing in as one of our hosts, and he will be our Muller's co-host for the next 3 to 4 weeks as I take a little bit of a break. Look at Muller being so gleeful and helpful. Ashok, I'm going to look at you and rely on you to keep her in her rightful place. Okay, and I know you can do it. You are man for the job. Okay, and while I while I take a break and look after the family on a few things, not in Singapore, in India, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun with not just Malar and Ashok, but also our guests for the following weeks. Yeah, Malar, you want to say anything?
I'm so excited to have Ashok. And of course, I'm not saying I'm not going to miss you, but I'm very happy for you that you're going for a holiday that you need.
I'm sure.
I'm excited to have Ashok as my co-host because he's like, oh, wonderful. Okay, so can you imagine if today baptism of fire he did so well? Other days when he's prepared, how well he's going to do. Maybe it's time to also wish happy Onam, Ashok, happy Onam.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for saying yes to me and Shah.
Yes, it's a big shoes to fill, and that's a big demand by Sham. I'm not sure if I'm going to lose more hair, but I'll try my best.
Okay, we'll stop the conversation right there.
All right, bye-bye.
Everyone, you know where to find us. If you like to look at watch the video, you can find us on YouTube. And if you're the type that likes to listen to podcasts, you can find us on Spotify. Not just today's episode, but all of our previous episodes are there for your listening and watching pleasure. On that note, thank you very much, everyone. From Taman Desa in Kuala Lumpur, Singapore via Taman Desa in Kuala Lumpur. And Malar, over to you.
And from Kuala Lumpur, not going to tell where I am. And of course, our dearest Ashok.
And Ashok.
And from Singapore, ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. See you all.